And here we are.
And here we
Oh, wow. Hi. My name is Barack Rosenblum. I'm the founder and essay mentor and creator of Essay Quest. Been working with high school students, writing college essays, and mentoring and training professionals since 2012. And really excited to be here with my friend.
This is Tammy Faye. My name is Tammy Faye Manid. I am the founder and principal consultant here at Ikigai Consulting and Coaching, and really excited to embark on our very first podcast recording. Barack and I had this in the making, so really excited for it to come to fruition.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And what we're going to be doing, like Tammy said, this is a little bit of a test. We're learning the technology, starting to get like how we flow together. We'll be bringing in guests. We have a whole slew of things we're going to be focusing on, but it's really about how can young adults and people, everyone, live meaningful, joyous lives that
Mhm.
really are authentic to them and
Yeah,
are powerful to them, and how can parents and professionals working with middle school, high school students, even older, support them and really kind of change the conversation and break out of some of the fear and the stress and the anxiety and all of that that really isn't supporting folks and is just making us all kind of crazy.
exactly. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself, Barack.
We want to start. This is a question that I asked, that a student asked me a few months ago.
Okay.
Very first time I had talked with her, and she said, I started saying like, "Hey, do you have any questions for me?" And she asked
Mm,
two questions, and I'm going to ask. We'll kind of ask each other now,
yeah.
and ask the other one as we finish. The first question, Tammy Faye,
Yes.
what motivates you to do the work that you do?
Well, thank you. Wow. And that came from a very young adult. That's an
A
amazing question to
17-year-old, and I said, "Wait a minute, I'm supposed to ask those kinds of questions, not you."
start. I love it. I love it. You know, what motivates me to do this work is around that there are many different ways to get to your end goal. And we have been sort of in this mode of there's a prescribed way to get from point A to point B. And I've actually experienced through my students, through my families that I work with, even my own lived experience, that your pathway is going to be as dynamic as it needs to be to get you to your goal. And no prescribed way will end in the same goal. And it's kind of about the journey that makes you who you are, and how you respond to sort of the ebbs and flows. And so what motivates me is how unique each student and family's story is, and helping them see those unique attributes and abilities and experiences that they're having that might feel everyday and mundane to them. So really highlighting and spotlighting, you know, those small wins, and the learnings that they are all having along their journey. So that's what really motivates me.
For
Yes.
me, I'm going to do this with a story. I'm a storyteller.
Do it.
I had this. I was staring at the U.S. Capitol in
Mm,
Washington D.C. back when I was
yeah.
about 29, 28, 9 years old. I had a master's degree in public policy. It was the beginning of the Clinton administration. I just dated myself. I was doing amazingly cool things for someone in my field.
Yeah.
Like the work I've done still goes on today, and it's affected hundreds of billions of dollars of social spending and
Yeah.
tens and tens of millions of lives. So I'm very, very proud of that. And I was
Yeah.
like on this incredible career path, and I was walking to work. Stopped cold, and I
Mm,
said, "Oh my God, I'm living someone else's life," and I
wow.
felt sick to
That's
my stomach. And that was the phrase. And then the next phrase was, "I bet they want it back."
mm,
Because there's someone else out there living the life I was living,
yeah.
and they weren't.
Mm,
And that was like this seminal moment in my life. It was like, wait a minute. And over the next, the coming months, I started looking at what my life really was. It's
Yeah.
really hard to go hiking and skiing after work when you're living in Washington, D.C. It's
Do
really
tell.
hard. It's really, really, really hard. It's really hard
Yeah.
when you love cold weather to live in Washington, D.C. in the summer.
Oh, 100%.
Right. It's really hard to live in Washington, D.C. And I have these beautiful suits and like all of that when all you really want to do is wear shorts and a t-shirt. And I
Yep.
ended up and about 6 months later, I transferred to our Seattle office where I didn't wear shorts and a t-shirt, but I wore a lot of flannel. This was the grunge period. I was doing
Okay.
phenomenal, still doing the work was great. I still loved it, working with great people. And
Yeah.
and I literally would, finish work at 5:30, go home, snarf down dinner, and drive an hour into the mountains and go skiing for several hours
Yeah.
or go hiking in the summer.
Ah,
So
it's beautiful.
it was like, I'm living my life. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And over the years, that became just a bottom line for me personally. When I started working with teenagers, about 2008, 2009, I was running a teen leadership program at the ski school, this huge ski school I was now helping to run, um,
Nice.
and had these conversations with kids. And they, one day, a rainy day, were inside, and they started talking about how exhausting their life was
Mm.
and how tired they were and how stressed they were and all these crazy demands.
Yeah.
And one of them said, I knew what life used to be like for kids. We all
Right.
do. And we wish it were like that just every now and then. And it broke my
Yeah.
heart. And I had a
Yeah.
conversation with them about happiness and meaning and how you can make choices as a young adult. And James is still a close friend. He's now about 33 years old. A lot of those
Aw,
people are still friends, and they say that and those kinds of conversations were just so impactful. So that became my
yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
that's what's underneath the work I do. People having the experience of I'm living my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. What's really captivating about your story is that you had a looking glass moment where you looked into the mirror and you were like, this is not me. Right. And so you had to really see yourself or unsee yourself in the way that you were sort of moving through life. And then say, okay, no, this is not who I actually am. This is not what I actually want to do. And then make a switch. And it's really hard to make a really big switch like that. So I just want to commend you for that bravery because that's a lot of what both of us do in our work is helping students take that first brave step in telling their story, whether it be through applications or essay writing. Uh,
So in that conversation, this guy James, I love James. Um,
yeah,
he he said at one point, everyone demands 100% of my time. They'd gone through, like, I have driver's ed, I have SAT, like I have all these things, and they expect 100%. And this is what this coach says, and this is what this teacher says. And my wrestling coach always demands 110%. To which I said, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You
yep.
can't. Like, it's physically impossible. It's mathematically
Mhm,
impossible, I think. And it's exhausting
mhm.
and just like we can't live a meaningful life. And he came back the next week so excited. And he had talked with his parents, and I'd actually talked with his parents as well. I gave them all a heads up. It's like, just so you guys know, this is what we talked about. And he said, I
Yeah,
quit wrestling and I'm so much happier. And in the spring, he picked up, I think it was rugby. That was just fun.
yeah.
Another guy, Philip, who just had a baby. His partner had they had a like a 2-month old baby. Um,
Yeah.
he was like Mr. Stress, super smart, super talented. He ended
Yeah.
up leading that leadership program
Mhm.
because he's so intense. He was so intense about everything. He was so incredibly skilled and went off to college. And I was actually getting a little concerned about him at one point because of the
Yeah.
extraordinary pressure he put on himself. And I got a text at 2 in the morning on a Friday or Saturday night. Brock, I just figured out what you mean about being happy. And he
Oh
became a
my
music
goodness.
producer.
Wow. Wow.
And he still does other things. He has the, kind of the job that pays the bills. He's very good at it.
Yeah.
But it's like, I
Yeah. Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to go and perform at venues. I want to, and so he in his college years, he started hearing what that's when it started clicking. And then his 20s were this exploration
Mm,
of that decade for him,
yeah.
and did amazing things. Now he's probably 32, 33. And he's like, you know
Mhm.
what? The music thing it's still happening, but I have the steady income. I love my work. I, love my partner, and now I have a baby. And so this is how I'm designing my life right now at this point in my life to work for me. I'm curious, will you, like, what are some of and I know you've done a lot of things
Yeah.
all related around people leading awesome lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, a little more of your journey.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. So I would say for me, everything is deeply rooted in community and collaboration. And so my journey, when I first kind of found what I was really happy with doing, was actually when I was an orientation leader at Boston College, leading incoming freshmen through what is the most scary week of their lives, which is moving into this unknown place from their little bubble, from their little high school, right? And for me, I found the most joy in helping students understand that the world is their oyster and that they need to just explore and ask the right questions. And here's how you ask the right questions. And here's how you want to design a life that's 30% in the classroom and then 60 to 65% everything else. So, how do you do that without losing who you are and really discovering who you are? So I think that was the first.
And
um
were you like a junior or a senior? Were you a student, or were you on staff?
I was a current student. I was a sophomore. So I had just gone through the process of being a freshman, and sort of I loved my orientation leader. I loved how they sort of inspired and unlocked this sort of level of exploration. And um, they always had these like three essential questions that I now base my practice on: Ikigai, which is like, what are you good at? What brings you joy? Does the world need you to do this? And I was like, that's it. Those are the questions I need to keep asking myself at every point of my journey, because it might change and that's okay. Um,
I just sort of an informal Big Little Brother program. Zach was 15 when I met him,
yeah,
my ski program, and
yeah.
Zach and I we'll spend hours and hours and hours talking, and 98% of the talking was Zach. And very introverted. I'm the only one he would talk to other than his friends. It was like, but he all about everything he was seeing and doing. And one day, I think he was a sophomore in college, and he said,
Right.
"Oh, how are you doing?" And I almost crashed the car. I was so shocked. And it was that first
Wow.
time he was like, "Oh, wait, here's this guy I see all the time. And maybe he
Yeah.
has a life as well."
Yeah.
How about we each choose one of the other person's questions,
Ooh, I like that. Oh,
and
I
then
like
we'll
that a lot.
talk about it.
Okay. I love it.
do
Okay.
you,
All right.
do you want
I
do you
have
want
it
to
up.
grab one of mine?
I already know the one. So the question, the essential question that I love that you posed here is, what do you say that you think is so obvious that you don't want to say it because you'll sound maybe stupid or just assuming or duh, right?
Yeah.
How does that tell me?
Oh,
Tell me.
man. So that's part of the problem. I don't know. I mean, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
That's,
And this goes back at least to definitely college,
Yeah.
definitely high school, where
Yeah.
I throttled back all the
Mm,
time, all the time.
okay.
And I was very, very, very fortunate. I went to my high school had, I felt really stupid quite a lot at high school because there were some
Oh,
crazy, brilliant people. And it was an amazing, amazing place. I love them. They're kind, they're generous, they're fun and insightful and very academically talented. And I was academically reasonable
mm,
there.
okay.
So I didn't want to like I would if I thought about what I was about to say, I often wouldn't say it. If I didn't think about what I was about to say and just blurted out what there was for me to say, it
Yeah.
got a really good response.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so it's funny. This was my question, and I'm like, gee, I don't know how to quite answer it. What just hit me was when my and we can and you're much more expert at this when my prefrontal cortex got involved, I
Yeah.
stopped saying things people wanted to hear.
Mm,
When it wasn't involved or it was taking a nap or whatever, and just whatever was in the deeper parts of my brain just came out, even if they were unformed. Sometimes they're unformed, sometimes they are formed. Like right now, this is unformed because I'd never thought of it this way. All of a
yeah.
sudden, I was saying things that people responded to. So
Yes.
it's not
Yeah.
so much a specific thing that I'm saying. Because, like with
Right.
Philip, the guy who texted me at 2 a.m. on a Friday,
Yeah.
hey, I know what you mean by happiness. I had been having
Right.
lots of conversations with him for probably 4 or 5 years. So there's no
Mm,
one
mhm.
particular thing I said, but apparently I was saying something that stuck.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that I don't know what I said because when I said it, I was just saying what there was to say. Does that make any sense?
That absolutely does. That resonates so deeply. Yeah. Yeah. How?
So will you unpack
Oh,
that? Because this is one of those things where it's like, isn't that obvious though? Like to me, it feels a little obvious after I say it.
yeah.
And I'm guessing it's not, or it's not for the people who it is for some people, but maybe not for most. And if it's 2% of people where it's not obvious and they hear it and it makes a difference, who cares if it's obvious to the 98%?
I think part of it is allowing yourself and knowing that like no matter what you're thinking and no matter what it is that you have to say, that you actually have something to say that is meaningful to somebody out there. That you matter, your words matter, your thoughts matter. And I think it's scary because you're like, is this going to be well received? The human brain sometimes needs to hear the most obvious thing 21 times before it actually gets into our system and we put it into practice.
Yeah. So for
Yeah.
you, what do you say that or don't say that you think is obvious, or you don't say because you
Yeah.
think it's obvious?
The thing that I would say that I think I hesitate to say sometimes, but I have gotten into the practice of saying this more and more and more out loud is people do better when they feel safe, understood, and genuinely known. And I know that sounds embarrassingly simple. Of course, people need to be seen. Of course, relationships matter. Of course, a young person is more than their GPA, a test score, an admissions result, their list of accomplishments, right? But what's really ironic about this is that so many systems that are set up surrounding young people, young adults, and adults alike operate as if that's not true. And what I mean by that is,
Yeah.
when we respond, let's say we'll go with a student, right? Let's say if a student is struggling, we often respond to that struggling student by adding more pressure, adding more tutoring, adding more monitoring, another productivity system. And we ask, why aren't you doing the work? And then what I would prefer that people would ask is, what is making the work difficult to do or begin? Right? And we interpret this struggle with like laziness or other assumptions that are just not maybe the underlying factor. It just could be, hey, I'm overwhelmed. Hey, I'm a perfectionist. I've exhausted my perfectionism. I no longer have a meaningful connection to whatever it is that we're doing, right? All of those things could be true, but we are saying, no, let's add more on top of what they're doing or experiencing. And I just find that to be that if you care deeply about people around you, that you are going to stop and understand them and their approach so that you can then be a better friend, a better ally, a better tutor, a better teacher, a better whoever to them, right? And I think the other thing that I would say here is I remember working with students who initially believe or have this belief that they have nothing special to offer or nothing special to write about, because they were comparing themselves with these national award winners or published researchers or just all these unattainable things that or that are attainable, but like it's not in their purview, or they think that's the thing that they needed. But when we slowed down and we examined the stories beneath their activities, beneath the why behind why they participated in certain things, we found the substance was already there. It was already there. We just had to peel back that onion layer and say, wow, look at how unique you are. Two students can start the same organization, be a part of the same club or organization, but their whys could be astronomically different. And that's what makes them unique. And so for me, when I'm thinking about, the most obvious thing is people need to be understood. And once they feel understood, transformation then becomes possible.
The girl who a couple months ago asked me like, what motivates you to do this work? Last week was stuck, came to and her essay total standstill. We texted back and forth, got on the phone, and she said, I'm looking at all the stuff there is to do. Okay, for the next time, you're going to do this and this and this and this. It's very broken down. It's very clear. Like, here's the link. Here, like, there's no question. All the room in the world for creativity and self-expression, but like this is a broken down process. And what she was seeing was, oh my God, there's so much stuff to do. I was like, yeah, but it's like the instructions for making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Walk over to the pantry, open the pantry door, reach in and take out the bread. It's like that simple. And I did the little thing that you shared in that webinar, the first webinar you led.
Yes.
From what was it? From chaos to clarity, how to help teens get shit done.
Clarity. Yeah.
It was amazing. and the one little trick you gave was like, look, if you have this big task and it looks big and huge, just make a very broken down list, like the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I use that to empty out a closet to start the process of, I have to pack up my house because I'm moving in with Amy. So I said, okay, here's what you're going to do. And I forget what I gave her the like, open the file, scroll down to this, click on that link. Like, I was like even more discreet in the activities, and now she's off to the races.
I love it, because when you break a task down, it actually is more steps, but it's more small wins along the way.
Yeah.
You open the pantry door, you're one step closer. Check. That check does something to our brain response, our central nervous system response. We're here. We're standing in front of the pantry door. It's open. I opened it, right? It's an accomplishment that we assume doesn't need to be celebrated. But these small wins along this way, that's what needs to be celebrated.
That is so fascinating. What I just noticed is how wildly differently yes, like I didn't design like essay quest. Essay quest is a very step-by-step process. I didn't design it for lots of small wins, which I mean, that's more your specialty with your executive functioning coaching and all of that. I'm a process geek. It's like, what's the actual process here? What are the actual things you're doing in writing an essay? And a lot of systems and tools have like, here's the 8 steps, the 10 steps. I have 65 steps. Open the pantry door. And so it looks like it's 10 times more, but it's really much less. So it's really okay. I'm just seeing another way where we get to the same place in wildly different ways. How can students learn to tell authentic stories about who they are without performing, oversharing, or packaging themselves for approval? Huge question.
Yeah.
I'll read that again. How can students learn to tell authentic stories about who they are without performing, oversharing, or packaging themselves for approval?
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, do you want to kick us off, or?
Oh yeah, because that's actually what I do for a living.
I would love to hear the essay quest Barack way.
Yeah, this is how I think of it. Fundamentally, think of a bunch of things that you could write about. Pick some of them, write a bunch of crap, look and see what you've got. Look for patterns and connection. Let me slow that way down. Fundamentally, you got to know what a college essay is.
Yeah.
You got to know who the audience is. I have a guy, Sad Jacob, is the admissions officer. Like, pick one. It's really powerful to pick one person you're talking to or writing for when you're writing. Just like kind of standard pro trick. Sad Jacob is like 20. You would have been Sad Jacob. Sad Tammy Faye is your audience because you went into admissions right after college.
Right after my master's. Yeah.
Okay, after your master's. So imagine you stayed. This is not quite your story, but imagine you stayed at BC and you graduated, and you're like, oh, you did? Okay. And so a lot of people, they're tour guides, they're super friendly. They just like people, they're students, they graduate. They don't want to go into the real world, so they become admissions officers. And all of a sudden, the person reading your college essay is not an English teacher, is not a professor, is not an academic or an administrator. It's this unbelievably frustrated 23-year-old who's reading thousands of these things, and 75, 80% of them, maybe not even giving any useful information to help them make a decision. And their life is just like, oh my God. And they just want to get to know who you are as a human being to human being. We evolved to communicate who we are and our values, our goals, our dreams, our aspirations, our failures, our fears, our histories by sitting around a campfire telling stories at night while George is looking to make sure a lion doesn't come and eat us. Right? That's how, as a species, we evolved for that. And then sometime around, I don't know, 1930 or 1940, someone invented the college essay. So I say your audience is Sad Jacob. Your intention, the thing you want to accomplish, is to write an engaging, authentic short story that shows who you are, which is exactly not taught in most high schools. It's just not part of the curriculum.
Agreed.
In your role, like the role you're playing, the perspective you're taking is you're a teenager sitting around a campfire telling your story to your friends. So how do you recreate that dynamic of storytelling to
Yeah.
communicate who you are to this poor sap who's like, why did I get a job in the admissions office when I had an offer at the consulting companies?
You're
I could have
right. Right. Right.
traveled. And so,
Right.
so it's like, come up with a bunch of I call them story starters, like just
Yes.
ideas. Like, what could you do? Let me, okay, come up with a list of ways, different ways of doing it. Not like brainstorm potential topics for your essay. No, what are stories you could tell? What are stories you could tell? Forget about topics. There's stories you could tell. Pick some of them and have a really sophisticated activity called write a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Turn your brain off, type as fast as you can, get the words out. And I have kids write 12, 15, 18 stories very quickly, like 10 minutes each. Bam, 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 bam. Get them out. And then look at what you've got. Who is this person? Read your stories. Look for patterns and connections. Play some games with them. And from there, you'll start seeing you. And you may see aspects of you that you've known all along, but now there's a little more clarity. And there are some specific stories attached to that you can use to communicate. Sometimes kids are like, whoa, that's how I solve problems?
Yeah.
Across the board? Whoa, that's the role I seem to play in groups?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's this passion that underlines all these things I've been doing since I was 5 years old? I never noticed that.
Exactly.
Every now and then a kid says, oh my God, I do this thing. I don't even like doing it. I feel like I'm supposed to do it. And I'm such a jerk. Oh, you don't have to do that anymore. It's like, oh, that's happened like once every couple of years. Like there's this freedom.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now you, then you have all the stories. Now you have options. You know what you want to say. Okay, now it's like, this is what I want Sad Jacob or Sad Tammy Faye to know about you. I've told a bunch of stories, how do I kind of pull them together and make some choices? And then, okay, now I'm going to refine it. Now I'm going to write it as a 650 word college essay when really it's, here's a little bit of my hero's journey. Here's a little chapter in my odyssey as a young adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Becoming who I will become, which will be changing and evolving as I go, just like and hopefully it's not the 20-year voyage of misery that Odysseus had to go on to realize, oh, I can be happy and love my family. Let's try to make that a little quicker. But that fundamentally is how I find you can help students tell those stories that become fabulous college essays that do what they need to do as college essays and are really great to read, because now it's like, oh, I just read someone's story, human to human connection.
Yeah.
In a way you can't if you're planning and strategizing.
I really love that you use sort of the, this might be a little bit of a tangent, but campfire, sort of like metaphor for them to kind of delve into that. There's actually a real sciencey significance to telling stories around a campfire. I don't know if you know this, but a campfire creates intimacy without interrogation. Like that's the biggest thing. If you were to think about when we're gathered around a campfire, we're not staring directly at one another. We're looking at the flames. We allow for a pause. Silence is okay. Awkwardness doesn't come into play because the fire is really holding that part of the attention for us, right? And so some of the science behind campfires is that it really does help people relax physiologically. And I know that there's some anthropological research that says that, if we were to think about humanity's time span when we were hunters and gatherers, the daytime conversations really focused on productivity, focused on what are the immediate concerns, while the nighttime conversations around the fires shifted towards stories, ceremony, memory, spirituality, imagination. And so that distinction really fascinates me, that you even use that and pulled it into EssayQuest's sort of framework. Because I think that's also partly why the stories feel more authentic. You know, the campfire removes us from that productivity, performance, and evaluation that we are under during those daytime hours. But around the fire, we're just talking about who we are and what we've lived
Oh, yeah.
and how we experience the world.
We don't have a lot of opportunities to sit around a campfire,
Yeah.
but you can go take a walk.
Yes.
You can sit in a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I intentionally never meet students. I mean, nowadays, mostly it's on video. My very first paid student, where literally we would go to a park, crawl through some mud and muck, and crawl out on a log over a creek.
Wow.
And we would sit and
awesome.
talk, staring at the creek. And that's where Sean did the work to write his college essay.
That's so funny. My very first student, who now is a practicing lawyer, the way that I used to do consulting, right now it's much video, virtual video, but I try to cultivate that same warmness, is the family invited me for a Sunday night dinner. And Sunday night dinners were very sacred in their homes. And so to be invited in such a vulnerable space, in such an intimate space with them and their families, we didn't talk about admissions or applications at all. It was just get to know it. And I actually was able to pull from that Sunday night dinner elements of her essays and applications that she wrote for, which was besides the point, but it was cultivating that sort of sense of security and like, you're not being evaluated right now. You don't need to perform. This is just Sunday night dinner. Let's just chat. Yay.
There's Sean on the log.
Amazing.
And this is how we met and talked. And the most amazing thing. So I went to Williams, and any Williams grad knows this. There's a very famous quotation. So James Garfield, President of the United States, went to Williams. And there's a very sort of a legendary professor and president of Williams College, Mark Hopkins. And what President Garfield said was that something like the best education is a student on one end of a log and Mark Hopkins on the other.
I love it.
So this has a very, very personal meaning to me that because that's how I learned. That was my education.
You know, for me, ultimately, authentic storytelling, is not about presenting the most impressive version of yourself. It's about presenting a recognizable version of yourself, which really talks about what happened, what it meant, and what it reveals. And those three elements, if they're present in that essay or storytelling, that's what's going to be that right mix of your unique voice and the uniqueness you can bring to any environment or community.
Okay. So the question we're considering asking all of future guests.
Yes.
What brings you joy?
Oh my goodness. There's so many things that I love. First and foremost, I really love being my son's mother. I think that's like been the greatest joy for me. I love watching him develop his own voice, his interests, his humor. His humor is off the chain. His wonder, awe, his sense of possibility, being able to bear witness a child sort of becoming more fully themselves I'm realizing is shaping me as much as it's shaping him. And that's just like a selfish takeaway, I guess, to take from that. I love that my life contains contains this sort of stretch of like ambition and joy, right? I love like that intellectual, let's dig in deep, let's find out who you are, let's find out who I am and why that matters. And also, I love that, like, I like traveling and eating gelato twice a day and like having sports and discussion, book clubs with women that I admire. So I just love that I sort of built this life that increasingly reflects my values, and I'm not interested in someone else's definition of success, that especially if it requires me to abandon any parts of myself. And that wasn't always the case. So it's been a growth to get here. But I think that's what I love about my life, is that I am rebuilding and building at the same time this life that really reflects and honors the different parts of me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. What brings me joy? I mean, the one word that keeps coming up is adventures. Play.
Yeah.
I had for years. They don't make it. I wish they would. Ben or Jerry said, if it's not fun, why do it?
Yes.
Which,
yes.
Again, that's personality type and like, all sorts of things. But for me, I am motivated by play.
Yeah.
It was the color, the Hartman color code, assessment for motivations. For me, I'm like 60-70% play.
Yeah.
And play can be fun and goofy. Play can be very challenging. Like, how do I solve an issue? How do I do something? Play is this, noticing and getting curious and playing with life. That brings me joy. And then specific areas, my family, my puppy, my skiing, my hiking, my fitness, my this, working with my students. For me, it's all just a bunch of play. It's an aspect of play and exploration and just living life like with utter abandon. And here we are.
Yeah. Look at us.
Look at us. We did it. We did it. We did it.
Wow. We did it.
Okay. Well, since I have the buttons to run this thing, I will say, Tammy, thank you so much. This is a blast. I am so excited about this adventure. And a lot of joy.
Yeah. Thank you again. This has been a blast. I can't wait for the next one.
Yes. And we are supposed to say, I've never said this, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you like this, hit like. It really helps the algorithm.
Yes.
Because we do want this to make a difference and resonate. Great. Absolutely. Have a great one. And I will hit